Hello and welcome back to the next session of our bookathon, and we have an author chat. My name is Carsen Taite, and I'm here to chat with two of our newish authors, Sander Santiago, give us a wave, Sander, and B.D. Grayson. And I'm very excited to talk to both of you. So why don't you, Sander, tell us a little bit about yourself and your novel that just came out, or is it coming out? It just came out April, right? I've lost track of months. It's COVID.
Fair. I'm Sander, and the novel that just came out is called Best of the Wrong Reasons. It's a second chance romance, and I did not prepare anything to say about myself.
Well, that's okay. We'll ask you very pointed questions, very personal questions. I'm just kidding.
No, go for it. I forget everything about myself whenever somebody's like, "Tell us about yourself." I'm like, I don't know this guy.
I'm certain we'll figure something to ask you. Okay, BD, tell us a little bit about your book and you.
Well, the book is Love's Falling Star. It's about a country music singer who falls in love with just a random person that she meets, and it came out the 16th of March. So it just came out. But I just started doing writing. This was my first one. I am from Tennessee. Pretty boring. That's pretty much the gist of I'm married, so it.
Are you saying married life is boring? Is that what you're saying?
It's not boring. It's just, you don't get to live these wild adventures much anymore.
You're in a nice routine. How's that?
Exactly. Exactly. And I hope my wife is not watching me.
I can guarantee she probably is, because
she's downstairs right now plotting my death. Yeah.
So let me take a quick moment to say a couple of things. One, if you're watching and you have questions for any one of us, please feel free to type those in the Q&A box. So you can ask us anything, and we may, of course we'll answer something, and it may be true. So Sander, is this your first book too? Like first? Okay, awesome. Yeah. So what inspired you to start to just sit down and write a book?
I've written things pretty much my whole life. I have a cousin who's one of my best friends, and every time I'm like, am I even a writer? She's like, I've been listening to you tell stories since we were like 5. If you're not a writer, I don't know who is. And I'm like, fair enough. The stories have gotten way better since I was 5. And I feel like it's always been like a dream to write a book. It was always like just something I'm like, before I die, I should write a book. And it always seemed out of reach. There was people giving me like much more practical advice than becoming an author. They're like, be an engineer or whatever. And I'm like, okay. So I have a degree that's not at all in fiction. But I was like, this is actually what I love doing. So I'm going to try my hand at it. And Best of the Wrong Reasons came, I think, at a perfect time in my life to give it some energy. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of like, it is hard to find that space when real life is, it's like you're writing a book on spec, it's like building a house and you don't know if anybody's going to buy it, so you put a lot of work into it and then you hope something happens with it. So
yeah.
How did it feel to open that box of books?
I was not ready for that at all. A package came, like we get packages all the time, but they're usually for my partner or my partner's other partner and roommate and best friend who lives here. And it's usually cat stuff, just like a box of cat litter will show up. And I was like, well, this can't be cat litter. And they're like, this is your book. And I'm like, no, it's not. And they were like, open it right now. And I was like, okay. And then I thought about crying and I was like, don't cry. And then I didn't, but then I still can't believe what came in that box. So
that's very cool.
yeah.
How about you, BD? How did it?
When, I was the night that the box came, I was actually on the treadmill and we were expecting something else. I had no idea it was coming that quick. And my wife came through there and she's like, look what came. And she kind of held it up. I almost fell off the treadmill. So, I mean, it was such an exciting thing because, I mean, this is something I've always wanted to do. It's something I've always piddled around with and played with, but never had the courage to actually do it until recently. And so it's just really, it's been just almost like an out of body something. It's just been the craziest experience the last, year has.
So what's the most like unexpected thing that happened? Anything?
Not really. I'm not sure what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting to tell anyone, kind of, I wanted to keep it hush hush. I didn't want people to know that I had done it at first. And my friends should be PIs or something because they've all found it. I don't know how. I don't know who told who, but somebody did.
So the word is out.
The word's out now.
So kind of riffing on that, somebody just asked, what's the most exciting and most scary thing about your first book being published?
Probably the same thing. Probably people that I know reading it, and then you think, oh, if they don't like it, are they really going to tell me? Or it's the unknown for a minute, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. How about you, Sander?
What was the question?
Like, what's the most exciting and most scary thing about being published for the first time?
The most exciting thing, I think, to me, I tend to run I'm a really nice, generous, loving person, but there's like this portion of me that's super petty, and so there's a part of me that's like, to all of my haters, here it is. So I feel like
that's a better answer. I wish I had thought of that one.
Like, I will own that I'm like, there's a part of me that's rubbing it just in some people's faces, and I own that. And so that's an exciting thing. I think the scariest thing is this book is fairly explicit. And I have a grandmother. She's threatened to read it. And I'm like, oh, grandma, there's so much you don't know.
I saw Morgan Lee Miller, who's been with Bold Strokes a year or two. She posted a video on Twitter, and it was, this is how I prepare the book for my parents, and she like thumbs through the pages, and there's lots of writing, and then there's a blank sheet that says, and then they braided each other's hair.
Right.
I was like, I need to send my grandmother a redacted version.
Morgan can hook you up.
Like, my grandma's wild. Like, she's not, I wouldn't call her tame, but at the same time, I'm like, this is still my grandmother.
Well, there's a difference between them reading something racy that someone else wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. So BD, celebrity romance. I've loved celebrity romance. So what made you decide to start with that trope?
It was, it has always been one of my favorites. It's one of the go-to ones. If I see one for some reason, it's, yes, go Preds. I don't know who put that up there, but yes. So it's always been one of my go-to things if someone else writes. And it was not necessarily one that I was looking to write. We went to a concert, and as we were in Atlanta, and as I'm in the stadium and it's full, and I just thought, what would it be like for a closeted country music singer to be standing there? And it just sort of snowballed from there. Everything, it was probably the easiest thing I've ever written, the quickest thing I've ever written. It was just something that was meant to be, I guess.
I liked how your other character was, like a stand on her own kind of person. So, it's like she was a good match for your celebrity. Definitely, for sure. Sander, what inspired your book?
This racy book.
I love second chance romance. That's one of my faves.
I feel like I just love romance that is sort of like there's more against it from people's like outside perspective. Like I feel like all of their friends are like, I don't know why you like this guy, but if you do, have fun, that sort of thing. But then like there's like this intimate understanding of people, and I think that's why like these characters spoke to me. But the idea for the story was originally born from like a joke I was telling in order to get my current partner's attention. And we were just at a meeting, and we were talking about romances in general, because one of the women there was like, I hate romances. I'm like, what, you don't want to know how Finn and Orion meet at a funeral? And then it just exploded, and it worked. I got his attention, and it also turned out to be a good story. So yeah, like I feel like inspiration comes from any old thing, and sometimes I'm surprised by what inspires me, and I'm like, there's like a small thing that you wouldn't expect inspiration from, and then there's like other things where you like, I don't know, like story prompts on the internet, and you're like, this should be inspiring, but really these are boring and I get nowhere with them. So, but like a joke I made at a table at a party wrote
all of a sudden becomes a book. Yeah, concerts, jokes. I like what you said about how, the friends don't really understand the attraction, because, it's nice when your friends like the person, but isn't that like the key to the romance? It's like you see something in that person that no one else really connects with, or like that's your person, because you see and like those things. So I think that really gives a lot of authenticity to it, for sure. So people have asked questions. Let's find out what they are. This is a really good one. How did you adjust to working with an editor on your work, as opposed to like sitting in your special writing place by yourself and just tooling along? So talk a little bit about that process, BD.
It was different because you have to. You don't know what to. For me, with the first one, I didn't know what to expect, and because I was so nervous and things like that. So it's different. It's different. I learn a lot. God love her heart. She had her work cut out with me, but I learned a lot through through this entire process. I have learned so much more that will go into the next books and make them hopefully a little easier on everyone.
So, Sander, how about you?
I think every time I got an email back that wasn't, this is garbage, start over, I was grateful. And my training is in economics, and as an economist, you sort of understand that people specialize in certain jobs. And since I did not specialize in editing, I could put 100% of my faith in my editor and say that you chose this job, and I'm going to trust that you know how to do it. And so that I think that I feel like there were some ideas that I was originally like, oh, we can't keep this, but it's so cute. But in the end, I think a better story came of it. So.
Yeah, I've been there myself, and yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, my brain is not an editing brain. I mean, that's not my favorite part of the process anyway. And so I really defer a lot, because, I have an English degree and I have taught and all that, but that not like that. It's a very, very specific skill. And I've never felt that my work changed in a way I wasn't happy with. you know.
Right.
I think it's even times when I had to kind of mull it over a little bit. I was like, they're right. And sometimes I'm precious about things like scenes or characters or what I've called something. And then I realize, that was cute and nice, but it doesn't really work. And that's just kind of life,
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Do you read any of your reviews?
I am forced to. I'm read my reviews by my partner's partner, and I'm gonna call them by their name because that gets complicated. So Laura likes to read them to me, and they're like, "You got another 4-star review on Goodreads," and I'm like, "Okay." Oh, that's a lot to know. Thanks.
Do you like hearing the content of them?
I feel like I get really bashful when they're good, and I'm like, I don't like a whole lot of direct attention, in the sense that I like my work and my like achievements to be celebrated, but the minute you look at me, I'm like, oh, so I feel really great about the good ones, and then some of the ones there hasn't been a real like this is awful type one. I did get a 2-star review on Goodreads, and I thought that was interesting because I knew there were some things about this book that people weren't going to like. Like, I also have one of my characters is also a musician, much less successful, I think, probably, than BD's musician. He coddles in it at some point. But there's lyrics in the book, and they're like, I don't like books with lyrics. And I'm like, that's fair. I feel like lyrics in a book is a taste that some people have and some people don't. So.
How about you? Did you read any of your reviews?
I have read some of them, and it's kind of, it's the same thing. Some of them are fair points. I've only had 1 or 2 that have been what I would call negative. They weren't really negative, I don't guess, but they were fair points. And it's things, that, like I said before, that I'll learn from and grow on, and hopefully the next book they'll like better.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes reviews are very constructive,
Yeah.
And you take them for what they're worth. I mean, it may be someone who doesn't like lyrics, and it's like, okay, well, some people do and some people don't, and you can't please everybody. But then, yeah, it's kind of nice to be able to mull over them for a bit, mm-hmm. and figure out what works, and what you're going to take away from it, for sure.
Yeah, I had one that one of the people she wasn't really disturbed or anything, but she, I don't think really cared for the side character, Mac. I don't think she really cared for her name. Because when I wrote the character Mackenzie Davies 10 years ago, and I had no idea when this book was being published that Hulu was going to come out with a movie where one of the lead actresses was Mackenzie Davis. I mean, when it happened, I was like, oh, dear Jesus, here we go. And it was one of the first things that people said about the book. And so I don't really think it was a bad thing, but just know this, I had Mackenzie Davies years ago, like 10, 12 years ago.
You heard it here first. That's awesome. So somebody asked, how long did it take you to finish your first book? So that's a really good question. I like that question. Let's hear your answer, Sander.
I'm trying to think. I'm really bad at time, so it took forever.
More than a day.
Yeah. The first draft, the draft I sent to get my partner's attention, was probably 30,000 words of fanfic style angst, essentially. And then I was like, I should probably put people in spaces because they're just sort of floating about, just standing in a nondescript room in a nondescript place. And I was like, how about you're by a window. I don't know. And then, and then sort of evolved from there. And then a lot of decisions were made throughout certain points to change it from like third to first person, and then to, rearrange some scenes. I went to some writing groups and read pieces of it to them and got advice in that regard. So the inception took a very manic 48 hours. And then the rest about 3 years, roughly. So
from 48 hours to 3 years, a book was born.
Exactly. I don't know.
How about you, BD?
Like I said, this one came quicker than anyone has ever. I have never had a book that went this boom, boom, boom. We came home from the concert that night. She knows how my brain works. And so on the way home, I was telling her, I said, somebody couldn't stand up there like that and they would have a hard time in country music. And so the next day I started writing. And when she would come home from work and she would cook dinner and I would read her what I wrote that day. And it just, first of all, we've never done that. That's the first time ever that has ever happened. And it just went boom, boom, boom. And then sent it into bold strokes, and here we are. That's so it was really quick, actually. Really quick.
Like a week?
No, it was a couple of months, maybe a month.
That's still really quick.
Yeah, it was very quick.
So, what's the best advice you've had regarding writing, whether it was from another author or just life or anything?
Kind of what you guys said a minute ago. You have to learn. This is a learning experience, especially with your first one. I don't pretend to know everything about books. I am a dyslexic who didn't read much. As far as books went, I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and so there was a lot I had to learn, and you have to be open to accepting constructive criticism from people. And I've been very grateful as to the things, that I have learned so far.
Sander?
I feel like one of the best pieces of advice I got wasn't necessarily about writing, but like art in general. And that if you're gonna do it for yourself, then you don't have to show anyone. But the minute you start showing people, it's no longer for you. And I feel like that helps, like, writing it, because then I can write whatever I want and put whatever down, and I don't think too hard about what people will like until I get to the point where I'm like, is this something I want people to see? Is this something I'm willing to put my name behind? That sort of thing. And I think it also made the editing process better, because I was like, this person is a reader of my work and they didn't write it, and here's what they have to say about it, so I should listen a little. But I think that's true I feel like I've talked to people who also want to write books, but they're so married to the structure, to the character design or whatever, and even like I'm an avid reader. Like I also am relatively dyslexic, and so I read really slow, but I read a lot. And I listen to a lot of books, and I listen to a wide genre. And I had a friend who was writing, and I was like, this doesn't sound like the genre you said it was. And, but like we argued about the genre of it. And I'm like, okay, if you want it to look like this, then fine. But the minute people start reading it, this is a reaction. And you either take it or you don't, but that channels where you're going, So once it's out there, it's not yours anymore, basically.
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, and I try and take that into consideration when I read reviews. It never fails to surprise me that someone has a take on something I did that is not at all what I intended, or, it's not always bad. It's sometimes, they just like, they really see something, or there's some secondary character they just latched onto that I didn't even mean to really have a prominent place in the story. And it's just fascinating to me how you create this thing and you send it out in the world, and then it becomes something else just by virtue of other people's reaction to it. So that's kind of a cool thing. And once you get past the, like, you don't own it anymore. And if you're going to want to own it and keep it like this, then you just don't publish it. You know, you pay your money, you get to make it what you want, said the reader. So, so are you writing anything now? Are you writing your next book? Either one of you, BD? How about you?
I have a couple of different proposals in that we're looking at right now. So yeah, I'm in the process of writing the next one.
Okay, so it's like top secret. You're not going to tell us anything.
Oh, yeah. What is? I can't listen. Just you, just the two of you. Everybody else got to shut their computer off.
Everybody else, put your hands over your ears.
Right. One is an age gap, and it's something I've never written that before, but for some reason it just came. But the other one is a series that I wrote, like I said, 10 or 12 years ago. And we are actually in the process of, we are going to do a web series and do it. We're actually filming May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So there is a story that would be part of the first season of that show that we're kind of seeing if we want to release one book from two of the characters from that show.
Well, that sounds.
So I'm very busy here lately.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
How about you, Sander?
I have a book under contract, or I guess I am book with Bold Strokes. And so that's pretty exciting. That it's not in the same genre. It's more sci-fi than down-home romance, I guess, if that's a genre. Still romance, though, of course, because I'm me. And then as far as like within the world of this book, there are other stories that exist, and I just have to get to writing them. So I'm working on one in the sense that words are falling onto a page. And that happens intermittently. And then I'm also editing the one that's under contract. So I don't know really when it's releasing, but sooner rather than later, I think. So
it's funny, you get kind of in that, zone where it's like, I'm working on one and editing one, and then you're like, I don't remember which one's coming out when.
Yeah.
We'll remind you when it's time. Sci-fi, huh? So is that a love of yours?
I feel like I really want it to be, and I feel like I've had, like, sci-fi is the genre I think that I approach when they say write the books you want to read, because I haven't found a whole lot of personal representation in sci-fi. Like, for better or for worse, it's starting to, but it hasn't always catered very well to the Black community or to the queer community. And then trans people have very interesting reputations throughout sci-fi. And so I'm like, well, reading it has been special. So maybe I should write something that appeals to me. And like, I feel like I resonate with BD's talking about how a story came so fast, because this story, like, the minute I had the idea, I wrote it in less than a year. And that's something I've never done. Like, usually I'm like, I putz around and I'm like, here's, 1,000 words. And then I take a sabbatical for no reason. And then here's another 1,000 words. And, but this one, I apologize to my editor. It is over 100,000 words, and I'm sorry. I don't know how that happened, but that came so fast, and it was thrilling to write, and it's been interesting to edit. And so that's the genre I think that I want more from. And I guess I got to be a content creator for that. So,
well, and I think sci-fi sometimes has more, you see longer books just because you've got that whole world building aspect to it that you have to lay the foundation. Yeah. So when your editor says something, you can say, I said that, and they will go, who cares what she thinks? But she doesn't write sci-fi. No, but I think that's great that the rep is representation is a big thing. So I think that's important, very important. So somebody asked, how did you choose your public author name? Assuming you have a public author name, or that you don't have to disclose if you do or not, just, you know, you could say, well, this is my name. I'll go first. I took a pen name because I was practicing law at the time I started writing, and I had planned to write some books that were centered in the legal community. I didn't plan to write all of my books, but I did most of them. And I just didn't really want like a client to Google me and think that I was writing about them. You know, like on the first page of Google, you could still find me, you know, it wasn't like it was a secret or anything. It was just, I just didn't want it to be like right there on the top entry. And so I took the letters of my real name and rearranged them. And I had to add one letter to make it work the way I wanted it to. But so you know, if you like word games, feel free to come up with my real name. Or you could just Google.
Now we're all staring at your name.
You could just Google and you'll get it too. So how about you, BD?
My initials, and you know, I'd probably put more thought into it had I done it, because every time I tell this story, people are like, you know, my wife and I were in the process of trying to have a baby, and it was one of the names that we had chosen. Grayson was, and it's just kind of my way of sort of keeping that with me. So it just, that's where it came from.
Very cool. Sander?
Sander Santiago, hopefully soon, will be my actual legal name, with Santiago being a middle name. I have publications under my initials. Like I'm not hard to find. My last name is available to people, and often people call me by it. So like SR Dominic, I have scientific publications under my initials. And so I was like, how do I should probably maybe like put some distance between these two things, because you go from reading about like the nutritional value of breakfast cereal to reading, you know, stuff my grandma should stay away from. I wanted some distance between that. And then Sander Santiago specifically is like the name I chose for myself, and I wanted to showcase that without losing part of the name my mother chose for me. Her idea was to give me the middle name R. Yes, just the letter, singular. R is my legal middle name, and so that's in there after Santiago, and then my last name. So I didn't want to, but I was like, let's just add some space between.
Yeah, no, I get it. So let's see. Either one of you have a question or want to talk about something?
I was looking at the review, or not the reviews, but like the summary of BD's book, and I thought it was interesting that your main characters, your protagonists, are a musician and an oncologist.
Yeah.
And my protagonists are mostly a musician and a soon-to-be oncologist, and I was like, there's some synergy here.
This was not on purpose that we put you together.
I thought that was kind of fun.
You know, I read I just finished I didn't read it. It was on Audible. Aurora Ray's You Again. I just finished it yesterday. And I wrote one that's kind of like the same. And so I'm thinking, we're going to shelf that one for a minute. So put that one over there for just a second. But yeah, it's weird how sometimes they run, you know, they kind of run the same.
Well, and I think it's interesting how, you know, like two books can have very similar things, components, but
Yeah.
what comes out in the story is completely different. It's just so, I remember the year, it was like 2008. It was a long time ago. Gosh, that was a long time ago. Where all the pirate books came out. Like everybody had a pirate. There were all these pirate books, but they were all like vastly different lesbian pirate books. So, you know, you can have those characters.
You can.
I also feel like there's like, we talk about, me and my partner joke about like characters you see. There's like a baker somewhere and a florist somewhere, and you know, like a tattoo artist shows up a lot. And so I'm like, there's a baker in my story, but she's somebody's mother and not a protagonist. But I was like, and I feel like they're like comfort characters, you know, just like,
yes.
And they must have their sex appeal, right? Because they keep showing up in romances. I mean,
it's in every Hallmark movie. They're all bakers. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what that's.
Bakers gonna be bakers.
I have a deep and abiding love for anyone who can fold that dough over and over and over to give me a beautiful flaky croissant. So that is sexy. So sexy.
I got rolls. It's not good. But like, I feel like now I'm trying to think of like who doesn't show up in romance. Like my brain recently came up with like a garbage man, and I was like, that's cute, I guess. Like, let's go. I'm ready for waste management love.
Oh my God.
One person's trash.
Yeah, that's the tag. Write that down.
There you go.
I have no pen.
This is being recorded. You can.
I'll save it for later.
All right, we have another question. Somebody wrote mortician in that chat roll. I love that. Actually, there is a mortician book. There's two I can think of. I want to say that PJ Troublehorn wrote one, and then The Mortician's Daughter, recent. So last year, I've lost all track of time. Like last year is just like a big blank space.
Black hole.
Yeah. So when I say last year, I usually mean 2019. So
we're just going to skip over 2020 and
that. So somebody asked if you have rights to your book titles, like if there are several books called that. I mean, and book titles aren't copyrighted, so there can be different book titles for different things. I mean, for different books or songs or plays or TV shows. But I try, when I'm picking out a title, I try and find something that's unique, or I try and pick a title that is not already being used in my genre. So, but it is hard sometimes. I mean, if something's a mainstream straight romance versus a women loving women, or then I might go ahead and use the title just because it's probably not likely to be confused. So, but that kind of springboards off, like, how do you pick your titles? Go for it, you guys.
They usually just come at some point in the book. You'll just be writing, or I will, and you'll type something out, and you're thinking, hey, wait a minute, that might not be a bad title, so it's titles are in. They were talking about that in the last hour, Carsen, that you were in. Titles are difficult. They're hard, and I have learned I'm going to outsource Melissa Braden to do mine from this point forward, because apparently she's good at it.
So you didn't think of Love's Falling Star before you wrote the book?
I don't know that I have ever had a title first. I don't think in anything I've ever written, I've had a title first.
How about you, Sander?
I honestly thought Best of the Wrong Reasons was going to be a terrible title, because it comes from something a character says, and I was like, that summarizes it the best, I think. So we'll go with that, and it sort of grew on me from there. And then this next book is titled One versus Multi, and I had that title first. Like the first thing after I was like after like that concept was title, and then from there was like everything else. And so I feel like I was pretty set on that title. So if somebody had said, "This is a terrible title," I've been like, "No."
You're like, no.
Please no.
That is the danger, because I always pick, I can't start until I have a title. And so, I mean, it wasn't true the first book, but it's been true ever since. And I just, like, if somebody came and told me I can't use it, that did happen once, because there was a book in process. It wasn't published yet, but it was almost published. That was very, very close. And it just wouldn't have made sense, to have both these books come out around the same time that had almost the same title. So I was kind of heartbroken. but
yeah, during the proposal that I just did for one of the books, I put a working title in there. And after I sent it in, I thought, well, maybe I need to Google it or whatever. First thing, Bold Strokes. I'm like, well, that title's out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the Google will save you a lot of pain, but it will also disappoint you.
Yeah, should have done it first.
So somebody's asking about picking character names. So same kind of deal, like easy, hard, where do you go?
I feel like I need to be stopped, actually. Bold Strokes editors and friends help me, because my brain comes up with name, like Finn is short for Franklin Ian Ness, and I don't know why. And then Orion Star, hello, who's in charge of me? Someone be in charge of this. The next character, his name is Martin Logan King. There's characters in Finn's best friend is named Alexander Hamilton Jefferson.
Oh.
I need some guidance.
So
BD, how about you?
There are occasionally that I will look up names, but most of the time they just can't. I don't even know where Lachlan even came from.
It's a cool name.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't even remember where it even came from. And the one with the age gap, one of the main characters, which you may like this, Carsen, her name is Dallas.
I like that.
And then one of them, her name is Waylon. So I mean, it's I don't know. It's just names that mean something to me. I am a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, have been since I was a baby. I don't know why. Nobody.
Bless your heart.
No. My God. Try being a Cowboys fan and a Tennessee Vols fan at the same time and see how much you think the universe hates you.
I feel very sorry for you.
Yes. So Dallas has always kind of been something I wanted to use. And it just kind of worked with her. So
my cousin from Mississippi named his kids Dallas, Landry. I forget the other one, but yeah, you get the point. So I do this thing, and I want to know if you do it too. Like when I'm going along, there's, it's like you got your main character names, and then there's all these other people you have to name. And it can be a lot, and it really disturbs my writing process, because if I have to stop and look up names, then I'm in a rabbit hole of the internet that I never escape from. And so I'll just name them some rando thing. And like, I'll have Mr. X or the law firm, or, and then I have to go back and find all those and fix them later. Anybody else? No? Yeah.
I feel like I'll change a name halfway through because I like something better. I thought harder about it, and then I'm like, dang it, and I have to go back and find where that person shows up. I think only once have I called it a dummy name, and it was for a character I didn't like, but he hasn't. I picked like whenever I'd have a character who I don't like, I'll usually pick like the first and last name of other people I don't like.
Oh.
So like one of the big villains in this next novel is called Don Brady. Don for Donald Trump and Brady for Tom Brady. Don't at me. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. So that's his name.
All right. So here's a question from veteran Bold Strokes author Jane Fletcher. Of all the books you've read, which one would you have most liked to write? And do you ever think you'll ever try to write your own take on the same subject or plot line of that book? That's heavy stuff.
That is.
Jane is like that. She asks these really insightful questions.
I feel like my brain is saying there are some books that I absolutely loved, and I would want to have written them solely because I would want to be that good. Like I would want to have the craftability to have conjured that story, but then I also wouldn't want to take anything away from the person who did write it. So, and then there's a handful of books where I'm like, this could be gayer. And then I'm like, let's rewrite some gay into this.
I love that. BD?
So it'd be kind of like fanficking Bold Strokes or something. I agree. There are books that I would have loved to have written. I don't know that I'm as talented as to do them as well as they were. So I'll leave that to them. But I try to kind of stay away from the same type of things. So I don't think I would ever write something, that was kind of like someone if I knew, if it was if I knew, like I wouldn't have named my character, Mackenzie Davis, known that she was going to play a lesbian character, months before it came out. But, stuff happens.
Yes, it does. All right. So we just have a couple of minutes. So, what's the most fun thing about being a published author? And, you should come up with something because you need to act like you're having fun. I'm just kidding.
Stuff like this, because, I'm at the age where, younger people, and I've said it a million times, younger people don't understand how good they have it. When we were their age, when I was their age, there was nothing on TV. There wasn't books that you could read that depicted your life and the things that you wanted to do, And so when I started reading and started, Radcliffe was one of the first books that I ever read. The Honor Series, that was one of the first things I ever read. And I liked it enough to actually read the book and not listen to it. So to be able to do things like this with Radcliffe and with the people that I have admired so much in this genre and things like that, this stuff right here is just like, this is the top, this is the pinnacle almost for me. So, and even you, Cart, I've got 2 or 3 of your, I started doing them Audible. Once I got into Audible and audiobooks, then it's all those. But, this is pretty cool for me to do this weekend. So
I had the same experience, my very first event, like walking into a room, which unfortunately you two didn't get to experience the walking into the room, but you will, it'll happen. But, with people like Rad and Kim Baldwin and, Nell Stark and Allie Valley. And I was like, what am I doing here? This is so cool.
Yes. Yeah. And it was the other one that we did, I did a reading with Melissa Braden, and I can honestly say I don't know that I've ever been that nervous to read in front of someone in my entire existence, but go ahead, go.
How about you, Sander? Round us out.
Oh, I think from start to finish, it's been beyond fun. I don't know what's funner than fun, but like I peaceful. Like I feel like at peace with myself as a person by getting the opportunity, by following through, and now being on the other side and having people read it and say this spoke to me or this entertained me or you're kind of funny at times, and that I my ego is untouchable at this point.
Well, awesome. We're excited to have y'all on board, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks to all of you who are watching. Next up is a set of author readings, some stellar stuff for you to see. Make sure to visit the web store and tune in for all the sessions this weekend. Thanks, BD. Thanks, Sander. Y'all have a great weekend.